you okay with those two topics, dating and or like your dating life and what you were like in high school?
It's uncomfortable, but yeah, that's fine.
What's the worst date that you've ever gone on?
Uh, whew, let me think.
What's the worst date that you've ever been on?
Oh man. Uh, Let me think about that.
What's the worst date that you've ever been on?
Yeah.
What's the worst date that you've ever gone on?
Zitzi, I can't even answer that question. I went on so few dates.
What's the worst date you've ever been on?
Oh man. Yeah, I've been on so many dates.
I was when it came to women in high school, college, girls, whatever. I was like a recluse. I was terrified of asking somebody out for fear that they would say no, and then I would just be crushed. And then I would go to my room. I would listen to depressing music.
I dated so many people, and I literally never thought I would get married because I thought
what comes to mind, like the like worst date, like one night, whatever it was. What was the worst date that you went on? Like most awkward or most whatever.
Okay, this was awkward. It was a setup, which I never would recommend.
And so to avoid those issues, I just kind of kept to myself and dreamed about asking girls out, but never did it. Now, dates that I did have, nothing awful. I mean, there was never a bad one. It was always pleasant conversation, good food, good movie, whatever. No, there was never a bad date because I didn't do a lot of dating. Like.
I think we met at Bistro Bella Vita downtown. And I walk in and there is this dude. He's like a total beefcake, like just like his delts they looked like shoulder pads. Like they were just billowing, like his whole body was muscle. And I sat down across from him and I was like, okay, do you want to get an app? And he's like, I've looked over the menu already and nothing here would satisfy my need for protein. Or
I went out with a girl that I met at a camp. I asked her out and she said yes, and she gave me no indicator that she was going out with somebody else. But I think she went out with me to decide whether she wanted to become engaged to a guy or start dating somebody.
But he was super like he needed his creatine or his whatever. He was like talking about weightlifting and how to get his like max pound per muscle per pound. I don't know, some kind of capacity. It was ridiculous. And I was like, well, if you're not going to eat anything and this conversation is dried up, so I'm pretty done with talking to you. I was like, I mean, you're not interested in me or anything. So you just want to talk about you and your muscles. And it was done.
And so I went to her house to pick her up. It was a farmhouse out in Zealand. And it was just awkward. I met her parents and they were like mad at me. It wasn't clear what was going on. And then she was just super uncomfortable the whole date. And then I brought her home and just said, well, it was nice talking to you. And then she told me about this other guy and stuff. And I just said, well, come on, include that in the guy.
I don't remember his name. I just remember he was a beefy dude who cared a lot about himself.
I felt very, in a sense, manipulated. I guess that'd be the worst one.
All right.
So I remember going on a date with a girl in high school where I actually went on like a double date with a buddy of mine. And this girl was the first time I went out with her, and she had a friend that she wanted to take along for my buddy, and they didn't know each other at all. And we went down to a basketball game. There used to be, like, there's the Grand Rapids Drive right now, and there used to be like the Grand Rapids Hoops, I think they were called.
I remember the first thing that came to mind. There was a date in college where I didn't have any money, for one thing. So these dates, they were really cheap, and I tried to be creative, but I drove a station wagon with wood paneling on the sides and basically a whole locker room in the back, and it really wasn't a chick pickup vehicle.
And we went down there, and I just remember the whole thing being kind of awkward, like me not having a lot to say to this girl that I was with, but also constantly being distracted by my friend and him trying to get to know this new girl. And then I remember there was a mascot for the basketball team. And for some reason, that mascot just wanted to bug us for the whole entire game.
There's this girl in one of my classes that I finally got the nerve to ask her out. And we went out to Beltline Bar for burritos. It was half off burrito night. So we went out there, and then I was planning to go back and watch a movie at our house. And halfway through that dinner, I realized that this is really, really bad. And I don't want to spend any more time with her than I have to.
He must have known we were some high schoolers on some awkward date. And so he kept coming up to me and my buddy, and he'd play little jokes on us and sneak up behind us and smack us. And I remember one time he like messed up my hair, and like my hair is kind of important to me, you know, like everything looks just how it's supposed to look, right? And especially if I'm on a date in high school, I want to make sure my hair looks good. And so I do not let people mess with my hair. And so that just ticked me off, because I was thinking, what does my hair look like now?
One of the things that she brought up was a former girlfriend of mine who had told her all these different things about me. And that's when I realized that this was not going to go anywhere, and I'm dropping her off ASAP.
And towards the end of the game, I remember grabbing the mascot by his little mask, and I pulled him right up to my face, and I said, "Get out of here. Don't come back here again." Like, I was getting really pissed off at him, hoping he would get the message. So I felt like that whole date was just ruined by that mascot.
And so I made up an excuse of not feeling well, or the burrito didn't agree with me or something like that, and dropped her off. So it was just a very awkward time. And I guess I was pretty awkward too at that time.
What is the worst date you've ever been on?
I'd say the worst date I've ever been on was a first date I went on with a particular girl. This was in high school, and it didn't start very well. We went out to Cheddar's, I believe it was, out on 28th Street. It's no longer there anymore. And wasn't feeling great at the beginning of the date. And as dinner went on, I did not feel much better, and went to the bathroom a number of times, excused myself a number of times during the meal.
My worst date is my students know this about me. I am not an animal person. And the person took me to the zoo, and it was like 100 degrees, and it was super hot, and the animals were all tired, and they smelled, and they just sat there and didn't do anything. And the guy that I went on a date with was kind of awkward, and I just remember it, and it was not a great location for me for the date, and it just wasn't a great date overall.
And then after dessert, we walked out to the parking lot, got into my 1990 Ford Escort. We were going to head off to play miniature golf. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to make it. And so I say, excuse me, I'm going to be right back. Get out of my car. And I look back across the parking lot and see how far away the restaurant was. I'm like, there's no way I was going to make it back to the restroom in the restaurant.
Yeah, I remember he asked if he could hold my hand. He said, "Can I hold your hand?" And then he's like, "I'm sorry, my hand's really sweaty."
And so there were some bushes right around the corner, right in front of my car. And so I went around the corner, puked my guts out in these bushes, and then got back in the car. And I didn't have any gum or anything in the car. And she says, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I feel great now." And so we continued on with the rest of the date.
And I'm like, this is really uncomfortable.
And
And
did you hold his hand then?
we held hands, but he had already told me that his hand was sweaty. So then I held his hand for like 10 seconds and then found a way to like go look at another animal so I didn't have to hold his hand any longer.
Needless to say, we dated actually for a while. The relationship didn't end particularly well, but perhaps that was an omen.
Good for her though to continue on with the date despite having perhaps witnessed that.
Yeah, so that was probably one of my worst dates.
Oh man.
It was awesome. He warned me ahead of time that his hand was going to be sweaty. So
Hey, he was awkward, but he was honest. So
very true. What a gentleman. Yep.
do you have any dating advice for students?
Yeah, actually start dating. Drop this whole hangout thing, like texting, talking, whatever, all the garbage they're doing. Go up to somebody, ask somebody out on a date, face to face. Ask them on a date, go out to dinner, face to face conversation. Skip the whole talking stuff on the phone.
What dating advice would you give to current students?
My advice would be this, just based on my own regrets. Step out of your comfort zone and date people just to get to know who they are. That's it. Just to communicate with another person, enjoy time together. That's what's important.
When I was in college, I started writing a book on dating, largely because I wasn't dating anyone and I thought I had all the right answers. And one of the key points was do things that force face-to-face conversation. Don't go to a movie on your date. Talk to each other. So
when you get to my age, you look back and you start to see things from a little bit different light than you did at the time. Yeah, that's I regret not having the courage to just see people in the light of, hey, you're one of God's creations and I want to get to know you better.